Moving on to building safety. Tom.
Thanks. The 80 metre plus building remediation programme has been downgraded from green to amber, I understand. What are the main issues facing this programme, and what are you doing to fix it?
So, in fact, what has happened is the ACM remediation programme is in a very good situation. We have 96% of buildings on track for remediation. Only 4 occupied buildings don't have a start date. 2 of those are subject to enforcement. 1 is we're involved in engaging locally. 1 has only just entered the portfolio. The reason why the rating has changed is because we no longer have a separate rating for that ACM remediation fund. It is now wrapped in with the other routes for remediation through 5 different programmes that we run in order to address building safety issues. The Building Safety Fund, the Cladding Safety Scheme, the Responsible Actors Scheme, and because some of those are at an earlier stage of delivery, the rating overall for all of them is amber, but the actual ACM programme has not itself gone backwards in delivery, it's continued to go forwards.
The Building Safety Fund, I mean, are you confident it's still, there's enough in it to support all the many, many buildings that seem to be cropping up that need significant support?
Yes.
Do you feel as though the application process is working well, speedily?
I mean, as far as I understand it, if you have evidence to the contrary, always keen to hear, of course.
I actually don't have a huge amount of evidence to the contrary. I just know of a building in my constituency which put an application in, and the quicker that can be dealt with, the better.
Absolutely. I mean, half of those that have gone into the fund have been started, so we are sort of halfway along beginning that. Some buildings that are in the Building Safety Fund have been transferred out of the Building Safety Fund because they are now covered by the Responsible Actor Scheme and will be either remediated by developers or funded by developers who are part of that Responsible Actor Scheme.
It's good to know that there's the finance there to support all buildings that need it, but there are many, many buildings, and you probably will be aware of the situation in Ipswich with the mill, which is an incredibly complex case, where there's cladding problems and deep structural problems as well, and also this sort of scandalous situation where NAMA, the Irish creditor, essentially became the creditor for the development, and I think there's about £50 million was agreed with Lang O'Rourke out of court settlement to cover the cladding issues, but then NAMA basically went off with this money. We're talking about almost over £10 million. I understand that the Secretary of State's written twice to the Irish Finance Minister. I raised it at PMQs. The Prime Minister says he's going to raise it for Taoiseach. I mean, surely when you'd agree this is not a good situation, and when the department's figuring out how it's going to fund all these remediation works, getting back money that's been taken, which is meant to be for that purpose, it should be a priority.
Yeah, I mean, if this is something that the Prime Minister said he'll raise with the Taoiseach, then it's not for me to suggest it isn't extremely serious.
Yeah. In terms of the cases, because I know there's the Building Safety Fund, which, if my understanding is, that's to cover cladding remediation. I was wondering, in terms of the specific fund, in terms of structural problems that impact a building not being safe, that don't come under the cladding remit, is there a separate fund?
So my understanding is that the ACM programme was specifically for the kind of cladding that was on Grenfell Tower. The Building Safety Fund is for cladding problems that are non-ACM, so other cladding issues. The Cladding Safety Fund is for those medium-rise, 11-metre plus buildings which require cladding remediation. The Responsible Actors Scheme also covers other building defects, but I'm afraid I couldn't answer your question unless you can, Matt, about exactly what is covered in terms of other defects in buildings elsewhere.
No, sorry, I was just going to add
in the case of this building, the report into the external walls hasn't been completed yet. It's due to be completed soon, so we're not actually in a position right now to say what the total cost of all of this is going to be. But we think that the cladding will be about 15 million, but then there's could well be 15 million
of other issues
of non-cladding structural problems. And we're hoping to be successful with the Building Safety Fund, and then but when this separate review into external walls is completed, we're going to have more money.
Yeah.
And one thing's for sure, and that's for the leaseholders. There's over 200 of them. should not have to pay for
No, indeed.
wrongs carried out by the developer, etc. Just on a slightly separate note, why have some building developers who promise to remediate unsafe buildings failed to sign the contract to do so? And what are you doing to address this?
As of March 2023, 46 developers out of the 49 who'd pledged had signed.
Yeah.
There were 3 developers who at that point had not. That was Dandara, Galliard and Avant. They've all subsequently signed.
Okay.
The numbers of developers who are now part of the developer contract programme and therefore the responsible as actor scheme has changed since the pledge. Some of them have gone out because it turns out actually they didn't have any buildings that were relevant to the scheme. Some others have come in and we have engaged with those, agreed timescales to give them time, specific amount of time to sign. All of them have done that other than one whose eligibility we recently reviewed, still within the window that we would give them in order to sign the pledge. So we have 54 signatories at present.
Thank you very much. Finally, are you concerned that the 2022-2023 annual report states that there is a potential for a further fatal building safety incident? How concerning is this to you?
So, any fatal building incident would be concerning to us, and that's why, as I've sort of set out, we have a whole range of schemes in order to address issues with buildings. I know that you also heard evidence recently on our work on construction products, and it's important to us that that makes progress in order to make the changes we need to make to ensure that people can have confidence in the safety of all the construction products that are used in building in the UK.
Thank you very much.
Just following up on a couple of those issues. In terms of the waterfall, if there's no developer now to be held accountable, perhaps they've gone out of business or whatever, and the waterfall ends up with the freeholders, and the freeholder says, we're not doing anything, you take us to court. Leaseholders often can't afford those costs. In that situation, does the department have any responsibilities to help them?
So we will always take action to pursue freeholders where they have the responsibility, and indeed are doing so in a variety of cases. We've made it completely clear that we don't want leaseholders to end up picking up the bill here.
So will you take the freeholder to court then in that case?
So we have taken action against freeholders in the past.
Okay, that's helpful. Just in terms of the answer to the previous question about which fund covers what, which sometimes does get a bit confusing.
Yes, it does get quite confusing, yes.
Possible to set it out for us.
Yes, of course it is.
Yeah, really
absolutely. I mean, I've listed what I've sort of can today, but it is. I realise it is quite a kind of complex picture because of the timescales where different schemes have been launched, because obviously we launched the most urgent ones first, which is why the ACM kind of remediation scheme is so far down the line in terms of delivery. And now we really think of them as one programme rather than as kind of lots of different funds, precisely because there is this crossover between them. And I think that helps actually to give a kind of overall picture, but very happy to set out the detail of that.
I just, on a final point, and I'm sorry to sound too kind of potentially locally focused, but really what is happening at the mill is incredibly unique, and I think and it has commanded national attention for obvious reasons. But it really, it is getting incredibly pressing. There isn't a freeholder there. The money for Rake and Watch is running out.
Yeah.
End of March, a lot of my constituents are looking at, they're terrified about what's going to happen. I understand that there's some examples of London of similar examples where some of the leaseholders have ended up becoming a freeholder. But either way, and I have been into the department, I am reassured that senior people within your department are engaged on it. I know it's complex, but all I'd say is please stick at it, because it's over 200 people who are relying upon the department to come up with a solution.
Absolutely will. Thank you. Okay.
When you provide the information about the different funds, perhaps it's helpful if you could give us an idea of the buildings you think are covered by each one and how many have so far had their work addressed. Or
we can give you percentages on all of those. In fact, I can give you some of them now, but since the funds are all so confusing, let's not read them out now. Let's write it down. I think it would be better written down.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you very much.